Hey guys, it's Chris from Smithy Fitness. Welcome back. It's another scorcher here. My poor field is just burned up and brown and rocky and crap. I was stung last week. That's my fourth sting this year because the wasps and the bees, they go down into the little wildflowers on the fields. So, shoes. Which I hate, especially when it's hot. It feels so good to have the feet free. But these are grounding shoes, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I brought my 32 and 36 bells. That's the heaviest I've done this year. My heaviest bell is a 40. I've already done one back and forth. Because it's so hot, I'm only going to do two back and forth, so 4 110-yard walks. I don't know if I'm going to make it on my third and fourth unbroken, because these things are heavy in the hands, a bit slippery with the sweat. That's my excuse. I'm going to pick up one of my dumbbells. These are only 30, but I can talk to you and carry this, and it's better than nothing. So I want to talk to you about the universe. And the universe has a way of speaking to us. You know, when I was younger, I read Think and Grow Rich 10 times easy before I was 30. And not only did I read it, I took notes, and then I took notes of my notes. It was a tremendous book. I also read The Science of Getting Rich, written around the same, it's probably 100 years old, actually. I think it was written well before Think and Grow Rich. And Bob Proctor is another guy who, was like a Tony Robbins before Tony Robbins died recently. Actually lived in my neighborhood, but traveled the world and lectured and talked about vibration, that we need to vibrate at a high level, a level of optimism and excitement, which attracts the same energy back to us, the same frequency, as he would call it, back to us. And listen, I believe all this stuff. I believe the universe does send us subtle messages and does tell us very loudly when we're doing something right and also when we're doing something wrong. Now, it's not always easy to hear it because there's a ton of distractions in the world, especially these days with social media, and everyone's got their buds in. For it to really work, for you to really hear the universe, you need to have some quiet in your life. And I'm guilty of it too, but maybe not as much as most people, because I'm older. And I try to teach my kids, look, you need to have some time to yourself, just sitting in a chair, maybe with a notebook and just scratching down whatever comes to mind, or with a novel or a book, Think and Grow Rich, with a pen to underline all the important stuff, which is almost everything. Man, I strongly recommend it. So many successful people will call that their most important book. And it's a little bit heavy duty at times, but really worth reading. So in fitness, there's certain things that right? You know them in your bones. You know that you should move. Your body is made to move, and that, you should move quite a lot. You know that. You don't need me to tell you that. You also know that you should be picking up heavy stuff and moving it around, and that as that gets easier, you've got to pick up heavier stuff and move that around. I mean, it only makes sense. The body will adjust to the stimulus. And if the stimulus is always 12 and 16 kilo kettlebells, you're never going to progress. You've got to go 16 and 20, and then 20 and 24. And then today, for me, 32 and 36, the first time this year, even though it's like 37 Celsius in the heat, in the humidity, it's brutal, man. It is. But, so I'm going to do a 1 hour workout. But you've got to lift heavier. And you also know in your bones that any amount of fat on the body is a negative. I mean, not any amount, you gotta have 10%, or if you're a woman, at least 15%, but you know, any extra rolls you've got or on your face, I mean, you know it, right? It's not, I don't need to tell you that. You know it. Maybe I need to remind you. That's my job. But you know, these are knowings that are in the body. And there's lots of other ones. There's ones about the stock market. There's ones about your romantic choices. There's ones about where you live and how you act. And we're going to talk about that in the next segments. And I'm going to go kick the soccer ball around as best I can with these goofy shoes on. But they're really great. I got them from a cobbler who's on X. And he actually makes them himself and stitches them. They're very well made. And they've got a little bolt through them, sort of, that goes into the earth, that, you know, is exposed, and it comes up the other side, touching your foot. And theoretically, I should be grounded, even though I'm not barefoot. I can't tell you if that's true or not. As I was saying, when it comes to listening to the universe or hearing the universe, you need some quiet in your life. And I'll tell you a little story. I was a stockbroker roughly from 84 to 99. And it's a really high stress job. And by 98, 99, I was really feeling it. And my production went down and my clients were losing money. It was miserable. So I quit. I had to. It was time to do something else. And I still had some investments. And I would look at the screen on a regular basis. But when I looked at the stock pages in the newspaper in those days, you know, they had all the stocks listed, you know, 1,000 stocks, let's say. It was just a big blur to me. I couldn't make heads or tails of it, nothing. And it was kind of depressing because I'd loved the market so much, and now I was just disgusted with it, and no interest and no clarity. So I waited another month. So at month 2, I looked again, and nothing really happening. And I'm really, you know, wondering if that part of my life is completely over. But something funny happened around month 6. And I looked at the stock pages, and suddenly it was clear. Suddenly, I could see the stocks that were making unusual moves. If a stock is normally up once 1% or down 1% in a day, and then suddenly one day it's up 3%, and its volume is double the normal volume, that's significant. Something is going on. And finally, I was able to distinguish these movements, to see them, and to get a plan for tracking that sort of thing. And I became really good at it. And by month 7, you know, I had decided that I need to make $4,000 a month. And in that month, I made $46,000. It was crazy. And it was because of clarity. I finally had clarity. All that bad blood with my clients and the brokerage firm, and bad debts and margin calls, and just the horror of being a broker. I feel sorry for those guys. It's a really tough job. And you know, clients angry, of course, all the time, because if they make money, well, they should. It's your job. And if they lose money, well, you know, you're a prick and a fraud and useless. So it was tough. But when I finally got over that hurdle, when I finally got some peace, then the universe revealed, I mean, the stock pages revealed it, but it was because I had peace. And sometimes I would do the work, you know, I'd see these movements, and I'd go into the, you know, the annual reports of these companies, and I'd get an idea, and I'd buy some. And then I could get a really strong feeling that this was the right stock, or this was the wrong stock. But if I got the feeling that it was the right stock, I'd go heavy. And I've learned to trust this thing. The same thing happened with my house. I was looking for a house. I bought my house in 94, and I started looking in 93. And I knew what I wanted. I knew exactly, I kind of had a plan in my mind, more or less. And I had a real estate agent. He was kind of useless, showing me stuff that I wasn't interested in. So I'd walk the neighborhoods that I wanted to be in, street by street, just looking at the houses that were for sale, looking at the neighbors, kind of clarifying in my mind what was good and what was not good. And finally I saw it, and it was just like a little cottage, overgrown, because this was in a real estate bear market, of all things. We've had very few of those, but anyway, it was a power of sale. The bank had it. It was all overgrown. You go in the backyard and you could not walk through without getting spider webs, because it was just ferns and shit everywhere. But I knew that was my house. That was it. I didn't need to see another house. All I needed to do was put a bid in and close that deal quick, because that was my house. I didn't want to lose it. So I did not grind for every penny. I just made the deal. And that's something I learned from my dad. When it's there, don't scrounge for nickels and dimes, man. Make that thing happen. So he said so again, trying to get rid of that. When you're in tune with the universe, when you are open and you have ears that are not clouded by day-to-day noise, you will find opportunity and some decisiveness when it comes to making a career choice or anything of that sort, and stocks as well. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm getting a little burnt and done. So the question is, how do you know it's the universe versus just wishful thinking or your mind throwing out garbage? And it is tricky. But once you become attuned to the quiet, you will start to notice some sort of direction to your messages, some sort of commonality. That's when you know that it's not just some fleeting thought that comes to you from somewhere. Now, that's a really good question. Where do thoughts come from? They come from somewhere. They come from your subconscious. But you could say that that's the universe too. But again, the only way you're really going to learn is by listening, by feeling the consistent messages that come, and then acting. They're not all going to work out. But at least you're acting, you're taking action, you're learning. If it's the wrong move, you'll know pretty quickly. But if it's the right move, you're going to score, and you're going to score big time in whatever the thing is. All right. So that's it from another crusty hot field. But in just a few months, it'll be cold and dark, and we'll be dreaming of these days. So taking advantage of it. Thanks for hanging in there. I think this might be a bit sloppy, but give me a break, man. I'm cooking. All right. I'll see you in the next one.